Hey everyone, RogueGold here. Welcome back to the Division 2, and today we are finally going to be checking out the new Breaking Point gear set in the game. I've been getting a lot of requests from people saying, please make a build with this, show us your best loadout with it, how can I use it? And so, after a lot of experimentation and tinkering, I've done just that. I have some thoughts on this gear set overall, some places where I really wish they would have made some changes to the design of it, so we're going to go over that, then I'm going to break down the build, and then we'll do a kind of live gameplay demonstration of the loadout that I did land on. Hopefully that all sounds good. At the end of this, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this gear set overall, as well as have you share any builds that you've come up with it that you think are strong or otherwise noteworthy. But let's not waste any more time and get right to it. Alright, so here we are with the Breaking Point gear set, and first, as I was saying, I want to just talk about this thing overall, because I don't actually believe that it's a bad set in terms of that it's just providing bad bonuses or things that aren't actually powerful or relevant towards certain weapons or playstyles. In my opinion, the reason why this gear set is so hard to build with is the fact that it can't commit to just buffing up one type of weapon. In other words, it can't pick a lane, right? It's giving these bonuses that apply to so many varieties of archetypes that when it's all said and done, you can't really choose one to spec into and have the gear set just fully back that up. Let me give you some examples, right? The 2-piece gives you 25% of rifle and marksman rifle damage. Now this is fine. It's fine that they want to give you both of those options. You know, it's always good to give players more options for what they want to build with. I wish this set leaned, more fully into rifles, but again, if they want to give it marksman rifle damage as well, that's fine. Until you get to the 3-piece there, which is 30% headshot damage and 15% weapon handling. Now the weapon handling is fine. Again, that benefits all types of weapons across the game, but by giving it 30% headshot damage, that inherently begins leaning the set towards a marksman rifle style of play. Reason being, I mean, it's not like rifles don't benefit from headshot, but if you look at any rifle in the game, they all give crit damage as their native stat. And in general, you're less likely to hit headshots with rifles than you are with marksman rifles because you're spamming the fire button a lot more, right? There's a lot more recoil overall. So inherently, when we look at the 3-piece, I think that's where you start to see this lean towards a marksman style of play, which again, even though I personally don't agree with that, I think we have a lot of marksman sets of the game like aces and eights and hotshot. I wish they would lean more fully towards rifles in this. So far, looking at the 3-piece, that's fine. If they want to lean more marksman again, that's where we're going. But then we get to the 4-piece, and this is where, again, it kind of changes directions. It says hitting a shot with a rifle or an MMR grants a stack. Max stack is equal to the weapon's magazine size. Reloading will then grant 2% weapon handling and 4% weapon damage per stack for 10 seconds. No stacks are required while the bonuses are active, and then the timer running out will refill your magazine. So let's break that down there. Despite the 3-piece just leaning more towards marksmans with the headshot damage, you then have the 4-piece leaning towards rifles yet again, because if the stack of the talent of the gear set is equal to your magazine size, you can get higher magazine sizes on average with rifles compared to marksmans, which of course does not mean that you have to play this with a rifle, but yet again, that then leans towards the direction of rifles. Specifically rifles that have a higher magazine size, which on average have lower base damages and very fast reloads because you're just popping a mag in and out. So that's fine, except for the paragraph right below it that we just read about the magazine refilling. That then benefits, marksmans or lower magazine rifles, something like the Diamondback or the 1886, the base version of it. So like I said, in those 3 things that we just covered, you see the gear set, catered towards 3 different archetypes of weapons. And it's not that that's inherently a problem. It's great that it's, empowering these different things. But if the point of a gear set is to really push you into the direction of one certain fantasy and really buff up one style of play, you can't give it a little bit of everything and then expect it to just be as competitive or as good as other options in the game. Because again, the 3-piece leans towards marksmans with the headshot. The first part of the talent there leans towards high magazine rifles so you can get that stack size as high as possible. And then the mag refill benefits the most those slower reload and lower magazine size rifles or marksmans. And that is my biggest issue with this set. It's not the fact that it doesn't give powerful bonuses across the board. It's just the fact that because it can't commit to which style of weapon it wants to buff up, it inherently makes it harder to build for because you can't get as many bonuses for that one specific type. That said, as the title and thumbnail of the video suggest, I have created a build with this gear set a lot of you have been asking, so I came up with the best that I could, and this is it right here. Now, I'm sure some of you are going to be a little bit disappointed that it is using the Ravenous Exotic Rifle. Obviously, that is a pretty rare weapon in the game. I'm sure not all of you have it. Unfortunately, I do think this is the best rifle and weapon that I found that works with this set overall, at least the one that gets me the best results. Now, before I get into further details with the build, I will just say, if you do want an alternative, I do not promise that it's going to be as good, but I have actually had a decent bit of success with the M16 here, which is ironic because it's like one of the worst weapons in the game, I think, or at least, before Project Resolve, we'll say it definitely was, before it got any kind of a buff. But M16 with damage charts I've covered, put Boomerang as the talent on there, and this actually does pretty well. The burst property, I think, pairs somewhat well With this, you're getting a lot of damage for that 3-round burst. And the fact that you have a higher magazine size means you're taking pretty good advantage of the stack property of the 4-piece talent there. And the headshot damage on the 3-piece actually does help out more, because when you pop the weapon handling from the 4-piece, it's basically a laser. So as long as you keep it on their head, you're not really going to have much spread or much kick. So like I said, even though I think the Ravenous is more powerful with all the various bonuses that the exotic talent gets you, if you do want somewhat of a viable alternative, try the M16 out. Let me know how you like it. But let's now get into the build itself. Why am I using the Ravenous? Well, we get the mag size up to 70 with the help of the brand set that we'll get to very soon. So that already is getting a lot of damage from the 4-piece talent of Breaking Point. At 4% damage per stack times 70, if we get max stacks, that means that we're getting 280% extra damage when we pop the 4-piece talent after reloading. And that's obviously a lot of damage. On top of that, the Ravenous is just a really good gun itself in terms of how much damage you can get going with it. If you don't know how it works, it's probably easier for me to just show you really quickly right here. Let's set this to an elite target. It has different properties depending on which shoulder you're aiming from. From the right shoulder, our typical way of firing, this is the damage stacks, and from the left shoulder, that's where you get your defensive stacks. It's typically best to start with the defensive, at least with this build, and we'll go over that. But you shoot 5 times to max out the stacks, and then you detonate it by doing the opposite shoulder. So I do that, and I get a bunch of bonus armor. Then if I shoot with this one, I max out those red stacks, and then there's an explosion, and that takes it out. Again, you can read the full talent here if you want to fully understand how it works. It's kind of confusing, but it is a very good gun. It just has a very unique style of play, and because it's a bit harder to build for, that's why it's never been, I think, that meta option for a lot of players. But it does end up pairing really well with this gear set, I do think, and I'll show you that in the gameplay in just a minute. And just to note, if anyone is curious, you can only obtain this from either the Iron Horse Raid, the normal version from that end chest, where you have a very small chance from any of the boss kills, or it does drop very rarely, but it does from the Dark Zone. And if it's targeted rifles in the Dark Zone on any days, that'll get you slightly better chances. All right, moving on. Secondary pistol, do whatever you want. I don't think I've used them once while I have this on. Let's start with the backpack on this, because this is, kind of the centerpiece of what I'm getting everything here. We're using the Ninja Bike, which gives us a +1 to any equipped brand or gear sets, and this is all about buffing up the stats, right? I'm relying primarily, talent-wise, on the Ravenous for how strong, like I was saying, its talent can be if you use it effectively. What I'm really doing with the gear is just giving it all the stats it needs to perform really, really well. Probably better than it has been able to in any time past in the Division 2. So let's get into how we're doing that. For the mask, I have one piece of the new SP Zoo brand set. This is giving me, again, with Ninja Bike, 15% mag size, which directly increases my damage because of how much you can stack the Breaking Point talent. It stacks with your mag size. So again, by buffing that up to 70, we're getting even more damage. And then the 2-piece on this that we're getting is 20% more rifle-based damage, which is obviously really good. On here, I have weapon damage, crit chance, and a crit chance mod. Then we have, of course, 3 pieces of Breaking Point, and I do have them all rolled to blue cores. I have 4 total blues on this build, which maybe some of you do not want to go that high. That's totally fine. I like, in general, a more run-and-gun style of play, and so because the Ravenous has those defensive properties that we talked about with the left shoulder stacks, it means you can actually pop a good amount of bonus armor and just, mow through a lot of enemies at the same time. So that's the reason why I'm building some blue, so that bonus armor goes even further for me. I can do more with it, but I totally encourage you to try out your own distribution of core attributes there. So again, 4 pieces of Breaking Point, or 3, and we're getting 4 from Ninja Bike. That includes the 2 and 3 piece bonuses, the 4 that we've gone over. And I am using the chest piece here, which gives me then a 5-second increase in the total window I have to utilize the the stacks and the bonuses from this gear set, right? So when I reload and I get the thing going, you see down at the bottom, instead of it being a 10-second period of damage, it's 15, which just means I have even longer to take advantage of that 280% bonus that we talked about from the Ravenous. And so that's pretty good, right? And that's why I think it's more worthwhile over some other potential chest piece talents you could use. And on all 3 of these, I just have, again, armor and crit damage or chance. My total distribution, by the way, with the Ravenous is 36, 124. If you want to bump up that crit chance, you can. I saw some breakdown before where this is around the amounts that you can be at if you're not investing in crit specifically, that you'll still get a pretty good balance between the two. I'm no mathematician when it comes to this stuff in the Division 2. I think you all know that very well. But this distribution has worked plenty fine for me, and I think it will for you as well. Moving on then, we already covered the Ninja Bike, but lastly, we have the Fox's Prayer, which is kind of a no-brainer. It is the, multiplicative damage named item that gives you damage targets out of cover, and it inherently comes with rifle damage, so it's kind of, like I said, a no-brainer to use on a rifle build. And then we're getting even more accuracy from the 2-piece there from Ninja Bike, which does help out because the Ravenous has those dual barrel properties. The accuracy can get a bit out of control if you don't have a lot of weapon handling, but because we're getting 30% there and we're getting 25 or 15 rather from breaking point. That just helps this gun be a bit more accurate and land your shots a bit easier. Lastly, I've got the gunner specialization because I'm using this a bit more aggressively. As I was saying, with running 4 blues, this helps a lot. Just in general, gunner is good. You get a lot. You get the armor on kill. You get some of that stuff, so it works well for me. Because of that, I'm then using the Banshee Pulse. Again, really good stopping power. If you want to get extra time to get those stacks on enemies, that helps. And as usual, I've got the Reviver High for that extra safety net. All right, so as usual, I want to show you some gameplay, but instead of it just being background gameplay with no commentary, I kind of wanted to walk you through my thought process while I'm playing. And this way, maybe you'll see a bit better how it works. So again, we start getting the stacks up, and it has a lot of damage by base. Again, we have not popped the actual talent of the gear set yet, which gives us that 270% increase with the Ravenous, right? You can see the stacks at the bottom, though. I'm already at max stacks. I'm pretty much going to wait till it's maxed out, though. So now we've popped it. Now we have the increased damage. I got to kill some bonus armor. I know they're going to start jumping down to the window pretty soon here. And with the weapon handling and the extra damage, again, this thing becomes pretty lethal. Like, I think this is a very competent and solid build with the new gear set, despite its limitations, as we talked about. This is still pretty fun. And there we go. Place stays close. I'm going to pop it. So again, I'm going to start with the blues just to get a bit of survivability going. There's someone behind me. So I get the stacks up. And we got exotic there. But you can see the damage potential is absolutely there. And that's what I'm saying. Like, this gear set does give you a lot of damage, especially with something like the Ravenous. It's just that you have to kind of get over some of the weird inconsistencies in its build design that it has. So I didn't call in the allies yet, but let me do that. All right, they're about to jump down here. Let's get it going again. I got one shooting me in the back, but that's fine. I get the buff. We'll just hip fire a Ravenous, because that's totally how you're supposed to play with a rifle. There we go. Now the boss is coming out. Once again, we'll get some of that going. And pretty quickly here. Oh, get some of my bonus armor. We take him down. Again, if you want to play with rifles, if you have the Ravenous, I think this is a very strong setup. I understand not all of you are going to, though, and that's kind of, like I said, the downfall of the gear set, in my opinion, is just that it doesn't totally commit to which style of gun and archetype it wants to buff up. We got to get the final melee kill. But there we go. That's the demonstration of the build. I've had a lot of fun with it. I think it does work pretty well. So again, if you're looking for something to use with Breaking Point, this is the best I got for you. So there you have it, everybody. That was your look at the new Breaking Point gear set added with the latest season to the Division 2. My thoughts on its overall design, as well as a look at my best loadout that I've come up with for it so far. As I mentioned back at the start, any thoughts that you have about this gear set's design overall, I'd love to hear it down below, as well as any builds that you've come up with that might be different than the one I showed off in this video. As always, this is a collaborative effort and an ongoing discussion, so I would love to hear and see your guys' creations with this if you're willing to share them. I hope you all enjoyed the video. If so, and you haven't already, then I would greatly appreciate you clicking that subscribe button. It helps out a lot, and it'll keep you in the loop with all of my upcoming Division coverage. That's going to do it for me today, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. RogueGold. Ow.